So today we are talking about a guy that was acquired by the New Jersey Devils this previous summer in a trade that we did make a video about. Because 3 months ago, the New Jersey Devils sent away one of their top prospects to the Vegas Golden Knights in a move that I kind of said, oh boy, look at that, Vegas is getting more star power, eh? And the reason I said that is because this player was a prospect that was so highly touted. There was a lot of potential with his game, and he could have been this amazing scorer. We're talking about Alexander Holtz. The trade video is still up here on the YouTube channel if you wanted to check my immediate reaction to that. But 7th overall pick, Alexander Holtz from the 2020 NHL Entry Draft found himself traded from the Devils to Vegas just 4 years later. He's only 22. So he certainly still does have a lot more time to round out his game and become the top goal scorer that we all thought he could be. Last season, Holtz had himself 28 points in 82 games and 16 goals. It's been a pattern of his throughout his entire career to score a lot more goals than he has assists, or barely just get more goals than assists. He's always been a primary goal scorer. So, Devils fans were hoping for the best when he made his full-time NHL season debut last year, the first time he ever fully made the team for a full season's capacity, and he had 28 points. Not the best. But still, okay, he was 21, it's fine, he'll be better, right? There was still reason to believe that a guy who was such a talented goal scorer throughout his prospect days would eventually become a consistent 20 or 25 or maybe even a 30-goal guy. I remember when he was drafted in that 2020 draft season, everybody was talking about, okay, yeah, the Swedes. You got the Swedes that come after Lafreniere, Byfield, and Stützle. It's Raymond and Holtz that are the two guys next up, and then Askarov is thrown into the mix and Drysdale too. But Alexander Holtz, back in that time frame, had like 35 to 40 goal consistent potential year in and year out. He was very clearly marked as the top goal scoring prospect in the 2020 draft. Him and Jack Quinn were 1 and 2. Jack Quinn, now that I think about it, hasn't had the best career either, but he has been derailed by injuries, so maybe it's not fair to make that comparison. Anyways, Alexander Holtz was traded, and now with the Vegas Golden Knights, averaging about 10 to 11 minutes of time on ice per game, the guy has 0 points in 6 games total. Now, to be fair, the Vegas Golden Knights have gotten off to a weird start. They dominated the Avalanche and then followed it up with 2 extra wins, but their goaltending has been abysmal, and they just haven't been finding ways to string together wins the past 7 days or so. They only won in the first week of the season. But the thing is, Alexander Holtz talk aside, he has been in a really interesting trade discourse the past few days here, because it turns out the New Jersey Devils might have just committed robbery by trading Holtz away. Now, I'll be clear, I do still think Holtz can be good. It's going to take a lot of growing pains for him to get to the level that he's capable of achieving, but for now, things are looking really, really good for the Devils and the trade acquisition they made in this deal. We're talking about Paul Cotter. Because Holtz and goaltender Akira Schmid were sent over to Vegas for Paul Cotter and a 2025 third-round pick. That pick hasn't been used yet because, of course, it's not 2025, but the forward that was acquired by New Jersey in this trade, Paul Cotter, has been tearing things up with the Devils. Cotter is a 24-year-old center winger, 6'2", 212 left-handed guy, signed on till the end of 2025-2026 on a $775,000 deal. He was initially a 4th-round pick by Vegas back in 2018 and fully broke out with the squad in 2022-2023. He had a very strange path, going from the NAHL to the USHL to the NCAA to the OHL, not really being too hot of a producer over there, and then eventually found his way into the AHL. Bounced up and down with the Vegas Golden Knights and the Chicago Wolves and the Henderson Silver Knights throughout the years before fully becoming a Golden Knight in 22-23. He had 55 games and he had 18 points. Very modest, but he had 13 goals too on top of that. Cotter made himself known not just as a very strangely productive goal scorer, but as a guy who could also contribute physically. He's very agitative, he's hard to fight off the puck, and he's always forechecking. Cotter was a really underrated fantasy pickup for me back in 2022-2023. And then the season after, guess what? He was one of the top guys in my fantasy league, in the Hot Take Hockey YouTubers league that we had running, because even though he had 25 points in 76 games played, Paul Cotter was everything you wanted in somebody who would not produce top points. He would hit like crazy, he would physically attack guys like crazy, he would block shots like crazy, and in a league like mine that was a banger league where goals and assists were worth the same as 2 blocks and 2 hits, Paul Cotter was one of the best guys in the league. And he got traded at 24 years old to New Jersey. Now the thing is, he wasn't really the best offensive guy in Vegas, but now, if you take a look at what he's done, in the 8-game sample the Devils have played so far, Paul Cotter has 5 goals and 1 assist for 6 points. Even if he doesn't get a 50-goal season like he's projected to having, Paul Cotter is still on pace for 61 points. And you have tweets like this coming out here by Christy Flannery. Last year in Vegas, Paul Cotter scored 7 goals in 76 games. With the Devils, he has 5 goals in 7 games. And the top reply here says, so far, Alexander Holtz has 0 goals and 0 points. A lot of fans are replying to this tweet saying, oh yeah, Alexander Holtz will be lucky to get 5 goals all season. Holtz who? A lot of people going out there and saying the Devils won this trade, and maybe it wasn't even close. Let's go over to the subreddit, because our hockey fans had a few things to say about this. Paul Cotter had good underlying metrics, and Knights fans were sad to see him go. He was never going to get big minutes here, and he didn't fit Cassidy as a scorer, but he was a great grinder. Knights fans aren't surprised. He has a Stanley Cup ring for a reason. He's never played a playoff game. The top reply goes out there and says, yeah, okay, makes sense. Okay, maybe on some technicality, I think he might actually have a ring because of the games played rule, but either way, another comment here says, when I first saw Holtz got traded for some 4th-line dude I had never heard of, I thought the Devils got robbed. But it really seems like Cotter was buried behind veteran guys. He learned to play a grinder game but has some sweet skills. A huge and pleasant surprise. A friend of mine working as a coach in the NHL and AHL development coach, so he works with both, says that everybody in the Pacific Division had great things to say about Cotter, particularly his work ethic. And you have fans even saying things like this: I wouldn't be surprised at all if Paul Cotter puts up 40-plus points. He's skilled enough to keep up with Hughes and Brott while adding a more physical element to that line. I love him. And, you know, this is kind of where NHL players can surprise you sometimes, especially those that are a bit younger and that have more to show for than what they've been given to open up their NHL careers. Right now, Paul Cotter is listed as a 4th-line guy with the New Jersey Devils, alongside a Curtis Lazar and Nate Bastian. But as somebody who actually has picked up Paul Cotter again in fantasy this year in my categories league, I've been very, very satisfied with him and his production. Obviously, the hits are the best aspect of that. That 8-hit game that he had against Utah was a pretty good one. But at the end of the day, he has been one of the top producing guys in the NHL so far. And he was traded for a young dude that definitely hasn't been living up to the draft hype in Alexander Holtz so far. So Devils fans, let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Did y'all just commit robbery here in Vegas? Did you just clear out Caesar's Palace, Bellagio, the Pink Flamingo, and every other hotel in between of all of their gold? And Vegas fans, I know I always talk crap about you and your team, but I was just in your city a week ago. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. Vegas fans, what are your thoughts on the way Paul Cotter has been played? Did you think he had this in him, or was he really just a victim of circumstance? Hey, Bruce Cassidy has this style. He doesn't really want to use Cotter in that offensive, opportunistic skill kind of way. They would rather play him in a more grinder role. What are your thoughts on Alexander Holtz now? How do you respond to this? Because I don't think anybody had Paul Cotter being one of the top goal guys to open up the league in their bingo cards, but either way, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.